Hi, I'm Water. In this video, we're going to be going over all the skins in CSGO which are actually censored in the Chinese version, or which you may know as the perfect world version of CSGO. Now, if you aren't aware in this topic, due to Chinese laws, every single non-local game needs to be reviewed and approved by the Chinese national press. So the way developers speed up this process is by taking out and censoring anything which may be insensitive, which could include skulls, skeletons, specific symbols, and even some text in different languages. Saying this, the way they do this for CSGO is just by simply having two different sets of skins. The one which is known as the worldwide version, and another which is called the perfect world one. Now we're going to be going over all these skins which are affected in CSGO, which is compiled by Exerpass and also Aquarius. Starting right off, there is the dual Berettas Cartel, which you will notice the version on the left is what we have in the worldwide game, but on the right is the change which they've made. The skeleton just changed into a closed casket, and then you have the 5-7 scroll, which is actually a newly released skin, seeing as it did release at the start of January this year. This is in the Dreams and Nightmares case, and you can see they sort of just taped up the mouth, and instead of making it a skull, they made it a living person. Next up we have the Glock 18 Catacombs, which you will notice this is a pretty common transition which they do, seeing as they did change the skulls into gas masks. Next up we have the Glock 18 Nuclear Garden, which they did very similar changes to it, seeing as they did change the skulls into gas masks. Next up we have the P250 Cartel, which you will notice over on the handle there is a skull design, which just turns into an oval shape. For the P250 Contamination, this is another skin which once again got transitioned into some gas masks, while they did originate from just being some skulls. For the P250 Gel, this is where a few patterns you can see some skulls on it, but for the New World version they sort of just smear them out so you can't really see what they are. Next up we have the P250 Mortos, which does have a pretty cool change. You can see the skull at the top of the skin, which sort of turns into like a superhero face with sunglasses and also a star at the top of their head. For the P250 Wingshot, the skull which is on the handle does transform into a face that's just wearing a mask. For a skin which just recently released in July in the Recoil collection, it is the R8 Crazy 8. The skin has a very subtle skull design right at the tip, which did get a transition into just a gas mask. Moving into the R8 Revolver Skull Crusher, if you notice right at the butt of the gun, you will notice there's a skull design in the worldwide skin, which just got changed into sort of a circle design. Another censored skin in CSGO is actually the Tech 9 Toxic, which you can probably guess what these skulls turn into as it is more gas masks on them. For the USPS Cortex, the New World design is definitely very interesting, seeing as it is more so of a cartoon face rather than just a skull itself. Now for one of the most infamous censored skins in the game, this is actually the USPS Kill Confirmed, seeing as the color on it does actually completely change as well. In the Perfect World version, they do turn the skull face into a face which has cyan blue lights coming out. For another skin though, there is the AK-47 Cartel, which does originally have a skull imprinted onto it, which does just get changed into a scorpion. For a skin which literally released last year, this is the Og Plague, which does actually have a skull face right in the middle of the butterfly, but in the New World version they sort of just took out the mouth, so you can't really make out that it's a skull anymore, which is a pretty interesting change. For another skin though, there is the App Acheron, which literally has a bunch of skulls going all across it, but it sort of just gets blurred out so you can't really make out that it's skulls in the New World version. More so just looks like a bunch of paint that's splattered all around. For another AWP skin, there is the AWP Exoskeleton, which literally the focal point of the skin is the skull, but obviously it gets switched into a design which almost looks like it's pretty cursed. They sort of just took out the skull but kept the background the same, so it literally looks like it's another face. For another AWP skin which is actually censored in CSGO, this is the AWP Worm God, where you will notice near the butt of the sniper there is a huge skull, but in the Perfect World version they just changed it over into a gas mask. For another skin, it is the Famas Macabre, which is a green and yellow undercoated skin that has a bunch of skulls going across it, but this time it gets transitioned into something new and they turn it into spiders. Saying this though, they couldn't help themselves with the Famas Stinks. They did turn this one into gas masks though, but you can see when you compare the worldwide version over to the Perfect World one. For the Glio Chatterbox, this one's actually pretty interesting, seeing as they did turn the main skull on the skin into a robot, which actually fits in pretty well. You can let me know which versions you like more, the worldwide versions or the Perfect World ones. But for the M4a4 Desolate Space, this one's extremely interesting, seeing as they did turn the astronaut skull into just an astronaut with a closed mask. I think this is an extremely interesting design, and I think both look great especially for this skin. The M4a4 Hellfire is another skin which got censored in a pretty cool way, seeing as all the skulls which are on the back stock of the skin sort of got turned into mini Hellfires themselves. Moving on though, we also have the M4a4 in living color, which some may not even notice there is a skull near the top of the skin, but that obviously did get changed into an actual smiley face. Moving on though, we have the SG Bleached, which is a pretty similar change to what we've seen with the P250 Drought, where they sort of just smeared out all the skulls so you can't really make out what they are anymore. For the SG Heavy Metal, which did come out in the Snakebite collection, this is where you may or may not notice, but right by the bottom of the sight, they did actually change that skull into more of a face, looking like it's more alive. For SMG skins, which are censored in the game, we do have the Mp7 Curse, which you can see in the worldwide version does have a skull with some band-aids on it, while in the Perfect World one, it sort of just has it wrapped all the way around, in a way so it looks like it's not a skull anymore. We also have the Mp7 Nuclear Garden, which is pretty similar to the other nuclear gardens we have seen, since it did change the skulls just into some gas masks. Next up though, we have a Mp7 skin which has a change which we haven't really seen yet, which is the Mp7 Propaganda. They did change the Russian text and just completely remove it, which does sort of just make the skin a lot more sleek. For the Mp7, we have the Mp7 Circus, which for this skin they just decided to completely remove the skull design and just keep it a little bit more simplistic. They didn't replace it with anything. While for the Mp7 skulls, all they did was just change them over to gas masks, but kept the skin very similar. For the P90 Grim, which is a black and green skin, which has a bunch of skulls sort of reaching forward, they get changed into the same design, but rather just a bunch of gas masks instead. Another P90 skin which got changed is the P90 Shallow Grave, which in the Perfect World version they take out the skull and just replace it with a smoke pattern of the similar colors. One of the very first skins in the game, which released in 2013, we have the UMP Bone Pile, which this skin is also changed into a bunch of gas masks. For the MP9 Metal Flowers, this is where there is some hidden skulls in the background, but they sort of just get blended together and mixed in with the rest of the flowers. For the UMP Primal Saber, this is the skin which does have a skull of a beast, but obviously in the Perfect World version, this skull transitions into the living beast itself. I think both versions look really cool. One has the living beast and the other is really just the skull of the beast. For the Nova Rising Skull, you can obviously guess that this skin has a skull on it, but it does just change into somebody wearing some sunglasses and also a mask. For the sawed-off Apocalypto, they completely took out all the blood and also reattached the cut finger. For another censored skin, which is in CSGO, there is the sawed-off Yorick, which they changed the skull into a more cursed looking face. The XM Bone Machine literally has a bunch of skulls and bones going all across, which did get changed into some gas masks and also some knives. For the XM XOXO, this is a skin which has some patterns that do have some skulls on them, but in the Perfect World version, they just decided to completely blur them out and replace it with the background color. For some gloves which actually got censored, the Bloodhound Gloves, essentially every single one of them, they do have the skull right on them, which in the Perfect World version do just get switched over into some paws. As well as this, the blue cobalt skulls also do have a major change, seeing as they are literally consistent of skulls, but they do just get switched over into some gas masks. Saying this, these are the censored skins in CSGO, and you can let me know which versions you like more, the worldwide ones or the Perfect World versions, but this is something which many skin collectors are pretty keen about. I hope you are staying hydrated, and until next time, it's been Water, and I'm out. Peace.